Hey BookTube, it's Sarah and welcome back to my channel, The Book Bag. Today I'm going to be doing a wrap-up for the Magical Readathon, which happened in September. This is a readathon organized by Book Roast. I had a TBR video that I'll link up in the cards, and I'll link the announcement video and like the wrap-up video from Book Roast down in the description. So I initially said that I was only going to be doing the novice path part of this and that I wasn't going to be doing any character creation because I wasn't sure how many books I was actually going to be able to read in September. The readathon, like the path part, is only 7 books, so I don't know why I thought I wouldn't read more than that, because I usually read like 14 books a month or more. I don't know. Anyways, so I did read enough books to do the character creation as well. I have not settled on a name for my character yet, so if you guys have any ideas for names, let me know down in the comments, because I am not great at naming things, so I don't know. But we'll start with the character creation and then we'll go into like the whole path thing. So for my character, I decided that she's going to be urban rather than a wildling, and for that, the prompt was to read a book set in the city. So I chose The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which was like a cute little romance of rivals to lovers, the fake dating trope. It's very sweet. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. It was an interesting concept of having these 2 radio hosts team up, pretend to have dated, and host this show where they're pretending to be exes who are giving advice and like talking about love and stuff. And then obviously they fall for each other. So I thought it was a sweet romance. It was a little steamy, but not too bad. And I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything special. I'll probably forget about it again later, but it was a good time. Alright, and so then I decided that my character's heritage was going to be Iltyrian, which is to read a book with a crow on the cover or in the title, or a red cover book. And I reread 6 of Crows, which covers all that. We've got crows on there, it says crows, it's got red on it and on the pages. So it fills all those prompts. And I think after rereading it, I'm giving this a 5 stars because I just enjoyed it so much. As you can tell, I have all these little tabs. I don't know, it was a really cool experience rereading it after I've obviously read it before and after seeing the TV show and everything. Because the first time I read this, I just like sped through it super quickly because it's so fast-paced and like it just grabs you. But the second time, I could enjoy some of the relationships in the characters more and some of the interactions and like the funny little quips that they have every now and then. So I really enjoyed it almost more the second time. But I think more for the character relationships than for the plot. So first read through was definitely more plot enjoyment, and the second read through with more character enjoyment. But excellent book. I'll probably reread it again later. The next part of the character creation was to decide which province my character comes from, and I decided to go with Dark Meadow, which was to read Dark Academia. So for that one, I read A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Leigh, which is a Dark Academia book, obviously, about this school that has a history of these 5 girls who had died and were said to be witches. And it follows a girl who just came back to school after her girlfriend died last year, and she's trying to cope with that. She was also part of kind of like a little witchy cult, not quite cult, like a witchy, almost like a sorority kind of on campus. And so she is trying to come to terms with the death of her girlfriend, and she feels like she's maybe being haunted by her dead girlfriend, or something's not right. So I really enjoyed this book. There was like a good amount of like, is it a supernatural mystery? Is it just people messing things up? It was a sapphic romance, which was really nice. And I just felt like the author, she did such a great job of putting this kind of uncertainty all through the book. Like, it wasn't that we had an unreliable narrator necessarily. It was that people were you weren't sure if it was like the supernatural things were happening to her, or if someone was like kind of playing tricks on her, and she was always uncertain of like if what she felt was true. So it wasn't like intentionally unreliable, but she also was never sure what was actually going on. And so it was like a little bit spooky, but not too bad. Very like Halloween-y kind of vibes, so it was perfect for transitioning into the spooky season as we are in right now. So that was it for the character creation. There was, throughout the month of September, she did these kind of like little D&D things almost, where she would like, there'd be part of a story and then you'd have like a choice, and then it ended up being kind of a personality quiz, and at the end of the month she had the video where she was like, if you chose this, like it's this thing, and then it sorted you into these different guilds. So my guild is the House of the Arcane, which is very like logical, research driven. They're like in labs all the time, like little science geeks, engineers kind of this world. So that is what I'm going to be for the next part of the readathon I think it's in April. So that was very fun, very exciting. I love personality quizzes. So this was really enjoyable. Now, for the novice path part of it, so this little map that we kind of like went through the path to get to the school, I had made a TBR video about what books I wanted to read for each of the prompts, and then promptly, pun intended, discarded that, and probably only used maybe like half of the books that I had planned to. So we'll just go through all the books I read and talk about them. So for the novice path entrance, which is to read a book with a map, I did end up reading Winterkeep by Kristin Cashore, and I really like this. I love the Graceling series. I read that closer to when it came out. I thought this was a really good follow-up to that series. When I was rereading the Graceling series, I liked Bitter Blue more than I had when I first read the other three books, and I thought it was really interesting seeing the expansion of the world in this, and like this whole new culture and new kingdom. And I love the examination of like Bitter Blue as a character in here when she's like more grown up and she's, you know, queen. And it was really good. I thought it was a really solid addition to the series, where she didn't try and do too much of the like, oh hey, remember those other three books? Like there were callbacks to it obviously, but I felt like this was a good, almost could have been a standalone as well. Yeah, I gave this 4 stars. I think the only thing that I was a little unsure about was like the main romance in it, just because there was a bit of like an age gap, which I wasn't a huge fan of, and there was also the kind of like, I've known you since I was a child and you were an adult kind of age gap, which I also felt a little icky about, but it wasn't, I don't know, it was okay. So I think that was the only reason it wasn't like 5 stars. But the romance was very sweet. Then for the Ashthorn Tree, which was to read a book that's at the top of your TBR, I chose Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. My boyfriend had also read this book and he liked it. I love The Martian, so I was really excited to pick this one up, and it was really good. It wasn't what I was expecting, like the plot was very different from what I thought it was going to be, but it was really good. I think Andy Weir does a great job of putting like a lot of science in his books without making it too dense or anything. Like it's something that most people could understand. It's explained pretty well. But basically it's this guy wakes up in this spaceship. He's got 2 people with him who have died, and he's like, what the heck is going on? And so you get these 2 perspectives of like him in the spaceship trying to figure out what's going on. Why is he out here? And then he's got the past where we're learning, like with him, he's remembering why he is here. And so it follows like his mission path where he's trying to save the Earth, and then also kind of how he got to go up in this spaceship to be the one to save Earth. So I thought it was really good. At the beginning there was a little bit of, you know, like when men write books and there's like not a lot of emotion, they're like, I cried, anyways, next thing, and you're like, I don't feel like you're actually sad. There was a little bit of that at the beginning, but then it got, like the plot got really good, and I just like didn't care too much about that anymore, and I felt like it got better. So there was like that little bit at the beginning where I was like, I don't feel like you're actually sad. Like you just said you're sad, but I didn't like feel like it was a lot more of like telling, not showing. But then it got good, and he did a better job of like exploring the emotions, but then he also, I don't know, like the plot was interesting, so I didn't care too much about his emotions. So I gave that book 4 stars on Goodreads. Okay, so the next one is Mist of Solitude, which is to read a standalone. For this one, I read How Moon Fuentez Fell in Love with the Universe by Racquel. Vasquez Gilliland, and I really liked this book. I really fell in love with Moon as a character. I thought it had like some great messages, because she's like going on this tour for this app called Photogram, which is kind of like Instagram, but not, with her sister, who is like a religious influencer, and Moon is going to be her photographer and kind of like support system. Moon feels like she is the ugly twin. She feels like awful all the time. Poor Moon. Oh, that poor girl. The brother of the man who organized the tour is like working with her, and his name is Santiago, and she starts to fall for him, and they've got the kind of like grumpy guy and the like sweeter girl, but she's like still kind of like sassy and calls him on to shit. So that's really good. So it's a really good book. I just really loved the characters. I thought the romance was really great. It had some awesome messages in it. And I do have a video, I don't know if it's coming out before or after this, but there's a video where I talk about the book more in depth, because I gave it 5 stars and I really loved it. So the next one is The Ruin of the Sky. So this is to read a book that features ghosts or haunted houses or other supernatural elements. So this one I did read She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. I didn't really know a ton about this book before reading it. I just heard it pitched as Mulan meets Song of Achilles, and I don't think that's accurate at all. The Mulan part is because we have a female character who disguises herself as a man to basically save her life, and she considers it stealing her brother's destiny, because he ends up dying. So that part was kind of like Mulan, but it was a lot more like political fantasy than I thought it was going to be. I guess the Song of Achilles thing is that there's like a war going on and there's like political maneuvering, but Song of Achilles doesn't really have a ton of that. Song of Achilles is, you know, super character focused, whereas this was a lot more like there's a lot of political maneuvering talking about and like war strategy, and it just, I don't know, it wasn't for me as much. It was a good book, and I was like, objectively, this is a good book. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to, because I'm not really into like fantasy that's a lot of like political intrigue or like war strategizing and all that sort of stuff. I was like, okay, it's fine, I guess. But if you're into that, then I would highly recommend it, because I do think it was really well written. It had some neat characters and stuff. It just, not quite my cup of tea. The next one, so after that we went through the Obsidian Falls, which is a thriller or a mystery book. And for that I read the Betrayals by Bridget Collins. So this is also kind of a dark academia themed book, where they go to this fancy school where they play this Kanja, which is like, who knows, and they study this and then have to make them themselves at the end of the year. It follows a student after he's grown up and he's come back to the school, but like in a professional capacity. So this is told through several perspectives, and like through the whole thing I was never quite sure what was going on. There was like this sense that something wasn't right. There was, you know, you're trying to figure out what these Kanja things are. You're trying to figure out, there's little like snippets of things that you're like, this doesn't quite add up, what's going on? So this was a really cool mystery. I gave this 4 stars. At times it was like a little bit slow going, just because I was so like, what the heck is happening? What's going on? Who are these people? But I thought it did a good job of kind of like weaving the stories together, and it was really good, and like the ending was really good. It wrapped things up pretty well. So, and it's also just so pretty. I love it. It's so beautiful. But yeah, so I gave it 4 stars. It was pretty good. So the next one, second to last one, is The Tower of Rumination, and this is a 5-star prediction. And for that, I read The Final Revival of Opal and Nev by Dawnie Walton, and I did give this 5 stars. It was really good. It reminded me a lot of Daisy Jones and the Six, just because it's told in a similar style of having it be an oral history of a once famous musical group. Daisy Jones and the Six is pretty much entirely told through people's dialogue, like it's entirely an oral history, whereas this one has parts of it that are like from the like journalist's point of view, and there's little kind of like editorial notes through it. So it's a little bit less of the oral history and has a little bit more of the narrator in it, which at Daisy Jones and the Six, like the twist at the end is finding out who the narrator is, whereas this one, you know who the editor is, why she's invested in this story, and it also examines a lot of questions about like race. So this is set in the 70s, so it talks a lot about like the different racial tensions then. So it talks about like kind of the tensions and the relation between having like a white man leading like as like the lead singer, and then a black woman kind of as the like second lead singer, but still not quite, you know, she doesn't have as much power as him. And so the different like power dynamics and stuff in there. Yeah, I really like this. I thought it was really good. I was worried it was going to be just kind of like Daisy Jones and the Six, but slightly different, but I think this stands completely on its own. It was really, really good. I would highly recommend this. I think it goes a lot deeper into like social issues of the time than like Daisy Jones and the Six does, and it was just, it had like the writing was really good too, and I thought it was a really interesting like narrative device to have the editor in here commenting on what the people were saying, and like it shows you kind of the journalistic approach and like how she's like trying to get her sources to talk to her and trying to like follow up with people to get the whole story of what happened. The last book that I read for this was for the Aurelium Arc prompt, which was to read a book with a school setting. So for this one, I read The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre by Robin Talley, and I gave that book 4 stars. It was also really good. I have a video where I talk all about it, spoilers and everything, while I cook, and I'll put a link to that in the cards. But it was a really sweet romance, like theater setting in school. It follows a stage manager, Melody McIntyre, as the school is about to put on a production of Les Miserables, and her crew decides that their superstition for the year is that she can't date anyone because every time she's dated someone, it's gone horribly for the play. So she obviously finds a lead actress who she falls for, of course, and so it's her struggle of trying to keep with this superstition and like not date anyone and save the show through this, as well as her growing feelings for the lead in the play. And it was really cute. I thought it was a good example of like, you know, teen books where they're like the teens are in charge of everything and like they know everything. Melody was kind of like that. She's the stage manager. She's like, you know, I'm in charge of everything. I am like the leader here. But the book did a good job of having the teachers be like, actually, we're in charge here. You're literally children. You don't actually know what's happening. So I thought that was a really good kind of like message in there as well. So those are all the books that I read for the Magical Readathon. Let me know if you have any character names for my poor character who is just bumbling around nameless currently. And also if you participate as well. Like, what guild did you get sorted into? I'm kind of curious to see what else people have been doing for this. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Next. So, how are words working? I don't know.